o'clock. I'm calling this UAC meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will take any comments from the public. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does any commissioner want to remove an item, or I'll take a motion to accept it?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We have no old business that I'm aware of, correct, Mr. Green? That's correct. And let's move on to new business item number 1.
This was to elect new officers since we have new members. However, with Mr. Boyd not being here, I would recommend that you all table this to a future meeting.
Anybody have a problem with that? I think it'd be a good idea with Lance not being here, but also our other seat needing filled.
Yes.
So, that would be great to table it.
I guess your options would be the March 5th meeting, which the bylaws will be ready for consideration at that meeting. Possibly the next meeting would be April 2nd. One thing you could do is table it until March 5th. Should you wish to wait, should the position not be filled, you could always table it again.
Make a motion to table concerned chairperson, vice person until March 5th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
New business item number 2, please.
This is an item to consider a recommendation to the City Council to approve a resolution to execute a electric service allocation agreement with KMEA and the Western Area Power Administration. Western has sent out a solicitation or a notice that they are willing to extend their contract for power an additional 30 years. Our contract through KMEA for 0.7 megawatts of power around the clock will expire in 2024. This extension would take it to 2054, so I will be 103 when this expires. One thing about WAPA Power is it's our lowest price as far as unit price goes. It's 41 from the last average, 41 3/4 dollars, and 41.75 per megawatt hour versus 46, which is our next lowest price from Omaha Public Power District. Our average over the period is $54. Unfortunately, it is only 0.7 megawatts and amounts to 2% of the power that we receive. However, it is a firm source. We do get capacity out of it. It is hydropower, so as we move forward, we would be able to claim it as a renewable. We would recommend that you all recommend to the City Council that they approve the resolution, which would then authorize the City Administrator to execute the agreement. We do have a time frame on this. It needs to be back to KMEA the day after the meeting, so it'll be on the 17th. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Well, there's no real downside to extending this contract.
No,
Did they hint at that we may be able to increase?
It is possible. The way it works is Western contracts with KMEA for a certain amount. If someone drops out, then KMEA's memberships could pick that up. should we decide to drop out, we are only required to give them 180 days notice. So yes, you're correct, there is no downside.
You have to renegotiate the rate.
The rate would be, the rate is, it varies per year. It's based on their variable O&M, but, as I say, it's, the average has been about 41.75, so I can't tell you what it will be in the future, but it's currently, it's been trending lower than anything else we have.
Any questions, comments? I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the city council to approve resolution authorizing city administrator to execute a firm service allocation agreement, EMEA, and the Western Area Tire Industry. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good, thank you.
Discussion items. Mr. Foss.
Good evening. Some of you may know me, but let me introduce myself here. This is the first time I've spoken before the commission. My name is Brian Faust, and I have been the Public Works Director for the City of Gardner for approximately 18 months. I currently hold the position that Dave held for many, many years. Part of my current responsibilities include both the water and wastewater plants for the city. Dave, for the last year, plus or minus, has come out of retirement to oversee the electric utility. To help ensure our electric, water, and wastewater utilities are properly staffed, are properly maintained, are complying with the numerous regulatory requirements, and have a plan in place for major component replacement, staff felt that it was important to have assessments of all three utilities undertaken. These assessments will also provide a great starting point for a new utilities director. The engineering firm of Burns & McDonnell was retained to conduct these assessments. Personnel from Burns & McDonnell are here this evening to present the results of the assessments to the commission. The assessments will also be presented to the city council on February 16th. The report received by the council on the 16th will have some sections reworded over what you have before you this evening. The main components, basically the meat of the document, are complete and won't change. We are working to incorporate the council's 4 strategic goals throughout the report. When you look at the report, you see the executive summary, it mentions the 4 strategic goals. But it's important to show that what we are doing and what we need to do align with the goals established by the council. And those goals are promote economic development, maintain our quality of life, increase infrastructure and asset management, and improve fiscal stewardship. And at this time, I'd like to
I'd like to turn it over to the gentleman from Burns & McDonnell. Ted and Paul?
We want to start with water and wastewater.
Well,
Whatever you like.
I guess whoever wishes to go first.
Don't be shy. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yours is up, so.
I might have to step aside here so you can see me. Okay. So, thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You see it. Just this one. Okay, so.
Not up.
What's that?
Not up.
Right. So, my name is Larry Close, and I'll be presenting a summary of our findings as a part of the wastewater and water utility assessment. I've also got Jeff Keller and Jeff Klein as a part of the team that worked on the project as well. And you'll also notice, you'll notice there's a little bit difference between the water, wastewater utility assessments versus the electric. We realize that these trying to provide a little bit more information. And, so what I'm going to be presenting today is our project overview, our methodology for how we conducted the assessment for the wastewater and the water treatment plants, and we basically follow the exact same methodology when we did our evaluation. And so I'll go through first the wastewater treatment plant, background information about the treatment plant in general, and then some of the issues and recommendations that we saw, and then move into the water treatment plant. So we went out to the site. We went out to each facility and met with the staff. They were able to collect information on equipment and about the treatment plant in general. And so we were able to interview the staff, see what, from their perspective, what sorts of things do they think that they're lacking in terms of training and other things like that. And then we also did a walkthrough of the facility to do a high-level condition assessment of the equipment. And then we can either wait till the end to take questions, or if you would like to jump in, feel free. We can do it however you like. But the overall goal of the project was to give the city an understanding of what the current conditions are for the operations of the two facilities, and then also make high-level recommendations on what we think would be beneficial to improve the operation of the two facilities. So that's what we were trying to accomplish. And this is speaking to the methodology of how we conducted the assessment. So we were looking at regulatory compliance, operational review, maintenance review, and then the staffing and training at the facility. And and then as we were trying to identify recommendations, we were also trying to keep in mind the 4 strategic goals for the council that were adopted in 2014: fiscal stewardship, asset management, economic development, quality of life. So the wastewater treatment plant is just to the northwest of town, and it was constructed in 2001. Its permitted flow capacity is 2.5 million gallons per day, and consists of primary, secondary treatment, disinfection, and then solid handling. And these are some of the photos from the plant itself. So, these are some of the high-level summary. Is a high-level summary for each of the categories in which we were trying to assess the facilities, and then some of the recommendations that we explained further in the reports. And I might just take a little bit of time talking about a couple of these items. The operational review included a lot of the condition assessment, and so I put more of that information on the following slide, just because there was quite a bit to summarize. But one of the things I just wanted to highlight was the regulatory compliance, and there are a couple of things that the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, KDHE, is working on that could impact the treatment plant. And so one of the main recommendations that came out of that review was to perform a nutrient removal study. And so if you have any, we can go more into detail if you have any questions about that study.
What is the nutrient removal?
So KDHE is really focused on not what they commonly referred to as nutrients, but really is total nitrogen and total phosphorus in the water and in the effluent. And so they're trying to limit it from point sources like wastewater treatment plants. And so they have 2 initiatives or efforts that they're working on right now, and that's trying to establish, and both of them would change the current permit, which the wastewater treatment plant operates under right now. And so that's how they could impact the treatment plant. So the nutrient removal study would provide an understanding of what the current facility is capable of treating, how much of that nitrogen and phosphorus is removed, and then what sorts of things would have to be done to the plant, what sorts of upgrades, and in order to achieve specific goals. And so it would also include a compliance schedule, and that's a real big, that's a real big critical piece of that study.
But currently, there's nothing being mandated or changed that would require an immediate change. It's just that we should look at it to figure out where it's going. Is that correct?
That's close. So there's the two initiatives. So one is anti-degradation. That one's probably a little bit further into the future, possibly. One of the key initiatives for the city council is economic growth, and that can play a big role in speed, right? So as it stands right now, the more critical piece is the total maximum daily load, or the TMDLs, that KDHE is trying to establish. That is what could impact, or higher likely, or sooner, the impact could be sooner for the wastewater treatment plant. So again, and the nutrient removal study would give the city a good idea of trigger points, what sorts of things might, what do they need to keep an eye out for? So if you start to have population growth, then you're going to obviously stress the wastewater treatment plant, or if there's possibly industries, new industries that might be moving into town, and that could also impact that. But the nutrient study would summarize all of it. That would be all in that kind of a report, and have a clear understanding of what needs to be done, how to move forward. So this is under the operational review. Like I said, a lot of this stuff came out of the walkthrough, the condition assessment. And I know I spent quite a bit of time on the previous slide. I mean, if we can spend some time talking about this. I think the two of the big ones that I wanted to touch on quickly was UV disinfection and the SCADA. And the two of the capital improvement items that are a little more expensive. I mean, but the UV disinfection, they have frequent bowl breaks out of the facility, and so this would be an opportunity to improve that and change the orientation of the bowls to try to limit the breaking and how much downtime. And then on the SCADA, a lot of the SCADA system out there is original from the first when it was constructed in 2001, and it's just difficult to find replacement parts. Difficult to find people to be able to work on the program and things like that. So as things have been going down at the plant, the staff have been changing them out, and but this would give an opportunity for the plant to change out the entire system in a concerted effort, and one consistent platform all the way across. So it would be a real benefit. So I'm about to transition to the water treatment plant information. Are there any questions about the wastewater treatment facility?
Are there any other technology that we use besides the UV treatment?
There are. UV is popular right now. I mean, it's really common to use chlorine because it's really inexpensive, and it's probably the most inexpensive method. But you also have other issues with that, like chlorination. So all of the various options have advantages and disadvantages. The UV, the benefit of the UV is that you already have a system created for it, and so you wouldn't have to create additional facilities. You already have the building. The UV system is inside of a building. It's an enclosed pipe type system, and all that they would need to do is change the orientation. So it's a relatively minor change as compared to switching to a different technology. There'd be a lot more things to consider.
It's just an expensive change.
Yeah. Yeah. So the water treatment plant, and this is the water treatment plant is just to the south, in between Hillsdale Lake and the city. It was originally constructed in 1998, expanded in 2006. Its current capacity is 4 million gallons per day, and it's a conventional treatment with clarification and chemical filtration. These are some of the photos from the plant as well. So similar to the wastewater treatment plant, we did our walkthrough looking at these 4 categories. And again, the operational review, there were quite a few items on there that we wanted to comment on, so there's them on the following slide. Maintenance review, and I meant to touch on it during the wastewater treatment plant part of the presentation, but so, and the wastewater treatment plant's doing a little bit better job than the water treatment plant in monitoring their maintenance and how they schedule maintenance and how they maintain their documentation. So the wastewater treatment plant keeps they have basically a hard copy paper system for all of their records, for all of the work that they do, pump repairs, anything that they might be doing out of the plant. On the water side, they really don't have any system, whether it be hard copy or any other. And so one of the big maintenance, low-hanging fruit, if you will, is to purchase a computerized maintenance management software. And I think there's the electric, in the electric presentation we'll touch on this as well, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for synergies between 3 utilities. There's programs that are suited for all 3, and so I think there's a real benefit for using that. The goal or what that type of software provides is it tracks and monitors how often a pump turns on or how often you're using the equipment. It'll print out work orders to change out oil for routine maintenance and things like that. And it can be tied into the existing control network so that it's automatically monitoring how often equipment's being used. And so it also makes it very easy to pull reports out of that system so that the treatment plant can identify, well, how much money and how much man hours are being spent on a specific piece of equipment. So it allows you to make proactive decisions, and the intent is that it lengthens the equipment life.
Those can all 3 be tied together.
Yeah.
Same system to work.
Yeah. And so these are some of the other things that we saw during our walkthrough. And so I just wanted to touch on one thing really quickly. So on the wastewater treatment plant, the nutrient removal study, there's also some opportunity for studies to further evaluate operation. One of is the filter study, which would really provide the information to the water treatment plant to better understand what sorts of things really need to be done to the filters to improve operation. There's a number of things that they have issues with, including loss of media, and there's some other pieces of equipment related to the filters that need to be replaced. But without doing a filter study, you might do one thing, but it doesn't necessarily fix everything. I think the filter study would give you a much better understanding of what sorts of things need to be improved on filters. So with that, are there any other questions?
So I was skimming through a bunch of the information, and basically what was on the slides is high level for what you went into a little more in depth in the paperwork. But I see, like, for instance, on the water, that there's a schedule of a 5-year recommendation schedule and costs, but a whole lot of them say this year through any time in the next 5 years. So what information can we pull out of these reports to help us prioritize those different things? Like, a study that would help us know, hey, we should look at the filter study because before we go changing this over here, you ought to know this. Well, and I haven't read through this, verbatim yet. So are there key pieces of data in here that I can use to help draw me a roadmap?
Sure. And so we had specific things that we were recommending to be done in 2015 and 2016 For example, the nutrient removal study, I think on the water side, for one example would be on one of the chemicals that is frequently handled by the operators, and it could be it's a safety concern. And so that was one of the things that we had a higher priority in terms of time frame. But a lot of the other pieces, or a lot of the other things that we called out in the CIP table for higher priority recommendations, I mean, are somewhat up to the city or the plant on when they would like to tackle some of those things. So I'll give you an example. Like on the water treatment plant, a lot of the items listed in the table are pumps. Our recommendations were based on the high-level site conditions, how do they look, based on the information provided by the operators, how well are they performing, how often are they having to do specific types of maintenance. And so, the plant will have to look at is there a loss of redundancy? Are the pumps going down more often, and are they affecting plant performance? Are they affecting service? And if they're not, I think, do you have the cost for like the pump replacement? The cost for the pump replacement is significantly higher than right, and then right, and then
It depends on which ones, but yeah, there's several.
Right, but the cost per rebuild is much less than that. And so if you can do a few rebuilds, then that would be the way to go.
Does it give you a time span? Does the rebuild going to give you about the same time span of replacement would do? Is there a big difference in that in cost?
Well, and that can depend on what the issue is. For example, on the intake pumps at the water treatment plant, the operators indicated to us that they basically have to do major overhauls every year. So that would indicate that there's a bigger issue there. Maybe it's the wrong application for the type of pump, that sort of thing. So in that situation, maybe that's not the right way to go in terms of replacement. And you're certainly, and it's very difficult to judge whether a replacement, because if you were to replace the exact same type of pump, but maybe it's still the wrong pump for the application, so it still could fail relatively quickly. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis.
For instance, we had a job in another city where they actually had some intake pumps that were having problems. They actually, another consultant had taken out the old pumps and replaced them with a different type of pump. And every couple of years, they're having to do major overhauls on them because of the materials of construction and pumps. So ultimately, what they ended up doing is last year they started rebuilding the old pumps and putting them back in because they're made of a much stronger material. And so the abrasion and grit that comes in from the lake, basically you have a softer material on the impeller. In bowls, it's using a harder material, so it's more resistant to wear and tear. And just to follow up a little bit, one of the things that does make it difficult on the pumps is the fact that there isn't a computerized maintenance system, so that it's not the history is in the operators and maintenance guys' heads. So it's probably more like, how's this sound? It doesn't sound right, it's time to be rebuilt. There's not a log that says this pump has 50,000 hours, this pump has 100,000 hours. Traditionally, looking back, when they hit 120, we like to get them rebuilt. So without having that maintenance system, it can be difficult to know exactly when these things need to be rebuilt or replaced, and how to prioritize that. So to a certain extent, it's a lack of data which makes it difficult to answer the question.
So, let's say you grab the low-hanging fruit, you fix any safety concerns, you implement a computerized management system, maybe tie that in with a SCADA upgrade, now you collect some data over a couple more years, got a better idea. Then will we be looking at studies again to see what that data is now showing, and You know, like, looking at, hey, is this the wrong pump for the application, or do we already kind of know that information from this study? We just need to have some data to back it up.
So, on the, I don't think that would be, you know, for the majority of the pumps, I don't think it would be an additional study. I think the output from that software program, I think that would, I mean, I think it would walk you down the path of, well, gosh, you know, we're doing the repair, you know, every 9 months or every 14 months, but it really just makes sense to do the replacement. That, I mean, there's no additional study there. On the intake pump, that's a different, you know, it's kind of a different beast than that, because of how often they're having to do overhauls, it would indicate that it's kind of a bad application for that pump. Maybe the pump materials are not right. I mean, that's a really good point. It may be that the like seals and things like that are just not meant for that application, and so there could be a lot of moisture leaking in the motor, those types of things. So and we weren't going to that level of detail to try to identify issues like that. That would probably require a little bit more study to understand what's the kind of pump that's in there, what's the pump material. And a lot of what you're talking about is there documentation on the pump? Do we know what's actually there, or would we have to pull it, actually pull it out of the pit? We did look, we started to go down the path where looking at actually vertical turbine pumps. Those are a common pump type used at pump intakes for water treatment plants. But we did review the drawings, and it's a really, really deep pit, and so we thought that was going to bring some challenges in it on its own. So I think in that instance, I think there's probably going to be some additional study to better understand what exactly is causing the problem.
Larry, can I talk real quick about the filter study?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, we recommended a filter study. We've done probably about half a dozen of these in the last 2 to 3 years, and found a variety of things when you get in. We actually dig in to a filter. We have plexiglass plates that we'll put down as they dig out. And a water treatment plant filter, you've got an under drain, a piece probably of gravel, and then 24 to 30 inches of media. We basically drain it, we sink in with plexiglass, basically a cage, dig it out, get samples. It's quite the process, but what we're really looking for are how much media is there, and we just did one, last one we did, there should be 24 to 30 inches of media. The filter had 6 inches of active media. That we just did a filter study, or a filter design, and that's being reviewed by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, because we had to fast track that because they're basically dealing with the public health issue. I know these filters, no one's really gone back to look to see what's the condition of the media, how much is blown out, how much media is actually there, and what is the condition of it. So we're looking for stratification, we're looking for mud balls, how long are the filter runs, how clean do the backwashes get the filter. So it's a fairly involved process, and I think it's costing them about $35,000. It pretty much generates a report that's about 8 bits and gives you tons of information on what needs to be changed. Do you need new media before you have to go out and spend $130,000 on the media? Maybe you don't. Maybe everything's good. Maybe it's just a function of improving the backwash. Are there operational changes that should be made to the filters? So when you spend your $130,000 on new media, that covers you for your media will then last for 20 years instead of having to do that replacement every 5 years or 10 years. So it brings a lot of value.
If I could interject, we do actually have the 2015 capital budget money to replace the filtered media. So I think a question that could be asked is, should we not be doing that this year? Should we do?
I would do the study first. A lot of times what we find is that when the media is designed, typically it's a sand layer and an anthracite layer, and they need to be sized. Size and uniformity coefficients need to be sized such that when you backwash, you don't blow out one or the other, but likewise, you fluidize and clean both sets of media. We frequently see it where the backwash rate is sized properly for one but not the other, and say the sand doesn't get clean but the anthracite does, or vice versa. Or you're blowing out the anthracite because it's too much, the backwash rate is too high, that's required to get the sand portion clean. So there's a lot of poorly designed filters out there, and then maybe, Brian, what we find is when we pull the media out, we just replace the anthracite with a properly sized anthracite, and then we use the sand, or vice versa.
The filter media's been in there since, I think, 2006, had it in place, so going into 2015, we're 9 years old.
Mhm.
And so that was the recommendation, that we go ahead and replace that filter media, but like the,
You know, if it's sized right and getting good backwash, it could be perfectly good for another 10 years or more. So, I mean, the study will tell you that.
I think just to quickly add, I was, thinking about the question a little more, but some of the things, it should be in the report, but some of the things that the plant would be looking at, and they could use, these guidelines or comparisons and output from a maintenance software program, would be looking at, like, are you spending more time and cost than the annualized life cycle cost for a piece of equipment? And if that's the case, then obviously it makes sense to do the replacement. But those are the sort of things that would require additional study. I mean, they would have the tools, you would have the tools to identify that, and you have better understanding of the operation. It should be open to that. Okay.
Very good. Any questions?
We'll wait just a second until we get our presentation up. You may have a copy in front of you. I'm Ted Kelly. With me tonight, Paul Crown. Paul's been very helpful in helping pull a lot of the details together here. We also brought in one of our transmission distribution system engineers to help with system inspections. So what we want to cover for you is the electric utility side of things, the assessment, without going into a lot of the details that are included in the report. But key considerations, as Brian's mentioned and Larry mentioned, in the back of our minds, all this was keeping the key considerations of the city's 4 strategic goals for the city, and how the electric utility can help with meeting those goals, promoting economic development, maintaining the overall quality of life in the city of Gardner, increasing asset infrastructure management, and certainly improving fiscal stewardship for the city. Our approach on the electric system was fairly comprehensive. We did look at a number of things, but our approach in general looked at reviewing documents, a lot of the drawings for the system, while the reports prepared for the system, what's going on from a day-to-day standpoint, outage reports and all. I think you have that in some of your information tonight. We did go through and we interviewed key personnel throughout the system, and then we completed those system inspections. We looked at all 3 substations. We did a drive-through looking at the transmission lines throughout the city. There are about 4 miles of transmission line in the city. We looked at the single-phase and 3-phase, triple-phase overhead distribution circuits, a number of those. We did not go in and dig up into the underground, but we do know you have the underground distribution circuits too. You also have on the generation side, you have the 2 GE Frame 5 units. They're combustion turbines, gas-fired. And serving the gas to those is a 6-inch pipeline that's about 7,000 feet or so, 6-inch gas pipeline that brings the gas to that plant. You're currently serving approximately 7,700 customers that are residential, commercial, and industrial. So we looked at all of those things and made sure we were covering a number of things. So we reviewed the overall system. We looked at regulatory compliance issues. We looked at the operations and maintenance of the system. We looked at how the system is staffed and the training is being provided to the staff. We reviewed the capital improvement program, and then we looked at some of the financial issues the system is facing. You want to advance a couple, let's get to the findings. Certainly, some of the key findings of immediate concern was the fact that From an operations system, there are some key positions that there's some vacancies right now, and those need to be filled. Given that we believe that those will be filled in the near term, we believe that the system then is adequately staffed. The certifications and the programs that personnel go through as far as getting the training they need, the experience that's on hand, that's required for specific roles within the electric system, they are certainly adequate. You have an apprentice program that you have people going through for the linemen. So we find all those things appropriate. We did compare the system and the staffing of the system, the training that people are going through with other systems of a similar size and nature. One great example is Harrisonville, Missouri, similar size system, and it's staffed very similarly. So we did compare just to make sure. We thought it looked like your staff, but we wanted to do some benchmarking too. From that standpoint, it looks very appropriate. Once you filled those positions, then we do believe that the staffing is adequate for the current system size and requirements. Now, as the system grows, there will be additional requirements, and you'll be in a position from an equipment standpoint and from a personnel standpoint, you'll reach a point where you'll need to expand that. You do need to address the succession planning. That's an issue that does have to be covered. Move to the next slide, please. The system design, the construction, the operation, and the maintenance are consistent with electric utility standards and similar to what other systems are doing. We do recognize that you're utilizing good practices for your planning, for operating and maintaining the system. We do recommend, and I think this is something that Larry brought up for the water and the wastewater systems, we recommend adopting an asset management system that will enhance overall maintenance practices, because you can keep a better record instead of what's in somebody's head or what they've written down that may get lost. It's in a system so you can keep track of when things are done. And from a timing standpoint for certain things, when you should do appropriate maintenance activities. In the identified 5-year capital improvement plan, it seems to be appropriate for the system. There are some key items that do need to be completed that we want to focus on. Certainly, there's some upgrades that are needed for the supervisory control and data acquisition system. That needs to be handled and addressed. You need to upgrade the generator controls at the 2 gas turbines. The gas and fuel regulator valves need to be taken care of. And you need to continue, you've started the process right now, some substation upgrades at substation 1, the transformer replacement out there, and the oil circuit breakers. So that needs to be completed. The current regulatory issues that the system faces, there are certain requirements that the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, has in place as far as critical infrastructure protection. Our understanding in talking through things here, that currently is being addressed with the assistance of KMEA. If that assistance, were not adequate at some point, you would probably have to take some other steps in addressing some things as far as requirements that need to be completed by 2016 and 2017. But we understand that is being handled at this point. On the gas piping issue, you don't have personnel that can handle the gas piping itself. So in your contract with Black Hills Energy, you're handling that maintenance of the pipeline through that contract, and that's an appropriate way to do it, since you only have about 6,500 feet of 6-inch gas pipeline, so very appropriate to handle it that way. As far as the electric rates, just in looking at those in general, they are sufficient to satisfy your overall financial requirements for the electric system. So those are the key things that we found in reviewing the overall system itself. And any questions that you have, certainly we can go through those and anything that comes to mind.
Do you think that the regulatory issues that are being handled by KMEA right now are that we're just keeping pace? Because we have key personnel that are missing basically for a year now, are we getting behind the 8 ball on those? And yeah, KMEA is helping us out, but we really need, compliance officer helping us out sooner than later.
I think if the way things are being handled right now, I don't think we have a problem. If KMEA were to get behind, yeah, it could put you in a situation where you'd have to respond to some things pretty quickly. I reached out. We have folks in our office that handle NERC SIP assessments and help do that reporting for some systems, and it's just a matter of when they come in and do their inspections, if they find things that they want you to address, it could put you in a position where you have to respond to something fairly quickly. Whether or not KMEA could do that on a fast nature, I don't know for sure. So that could be an issue. Right now, it seems to be handled, but it's certainly something that would be of concern down the road.
Okay. And we've had the SCADA system and the generator controls on our to-do list for a while, and they're on hold until the key personnel came in. How urgent do you think the fuel regulator valves upgrade is?
I think it's important to address. The one thing now, the way the system is set up, for you to operate that, you have to go through a procedure with KCP&L to do the switching that's required if you're going to operate those units. I think if you don't address some of these things in the, I guess, at least in the intermediate term, that you could then have some problems. It's not something that has to be done right now, but I think we should keep that up there and try to get it taken care of.
Anything, Mr. Green?
Well, with regard to the SCADA, we've got, SIGA is helping us evaluate a couple of options. We've basically, the SCADA system is, some of the computers are running on Windows 95, very much out of date. We're investigating, looking at replacing, basically upgrading with the same type of system with new equipment, or going to a different system. I'm hopeful to be bringing a comparison of those two proposals to you at the March meeting.
Okay.
That's the way it's working is one of our number one priorities.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Green, let's move on to the expense report and revenue report.
Okay, and I'll find it real quick. Bear with me, I'll shuffle my file into oblivion. The key thing on the expense report, I'll start to shift ahead until I find it to talk to you. The main thing that you'll see is the contracted services in generation was higher than what was originally anticipated. The issue there is pretty much 7.6 million of that is in power purchases. Find my notes. Okay, I think the thing to do is to stop till I find them, and then I'll start talking. So it's brought my desk to the podium. You'll notice at the year's end, now this does not include the final true-up that will occur at the end of this month, or the January true-up, but at the end of December, we pretty much were at 97% of budgeted revenues. Expenses for the operation were at 96%. The big item was in power supply, which came in at around 7.6 million for all the purchased power. If you compare power this year versus last year we purchased approximately 133, shoot, my numbers will go crazy here, 133,000 megawatts versus this year's 143,000 megawatts, roughly a 7.5% increase. The price per megawatt hour is approximately 5.5% higher than it was last year. So some of our difference is made up in additional power purchases, roughly 10,000 kilowatt hours versus additional price. One item in the prices, the Southwest Power Pool instigated integrated marketplace system for, basically they charge where it goes in, where the power comes in versus where it's going out. There's a true up, roughly that makes up about $500,000 of what we pay for the true ups dealing with the new power delivery system. Otherwise, the budget does not include the $125,000 for the backyard machine that we purchased. It was encumbered, but it still has not hit, doesn't hit on this budget. It does include the rebuild of the parking lot at the distribution. All in all, we're close to budget. We're obviously down in personnel costs, somewhat up in contracted services, mainly for me. We used 21st Century quite a bit. Basically in line with the budget.
I'm just curious, is that normal to have that big of a jump at the end adjustment on the contractual service on the generation?
Well, it's been kind of trending that way all throughout the year. I mean, power purchase is something we really don't have a lot of control over. It makes up over half of our budget. So if you do end up with small percentage changes in power supply costs, they have a huge impact on the budget. As I say, it's $7.5 million of our $12 million budget.
Well, I guess I got a question with that. You said we had an additional 10,000 megawatt hours?
Well, bear with me. As some folks who, there was a city councilman who knew I couldn't add in my head and would always pitch me math questions just to mess with me. And I get very tripped up on the decimal places, so bear with me. We had last year we purchased 133 million kilowatt hours. This year we purchased 143 million kilowatt hours. So it's roughly a 7.5% increase.
So I guess the integrated marketplace, okay, that's an additional cost, we can't do much better. The increase in power of 5.5%, okay, can't do much about that. But we consume, or pay for at least, I guess that's where I'm going at. We pay for 10 million more kilowatt hours. But I don't see that revenues are up high enough to show that somebody used them at their meters. So do we have additional losses, or were those with following loads that we purchased to meet demand, but that it wasn't actually used? Because our firm capacity probably didn't change.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out, if we used it, why didn't we incur more revenue side to
Sure. Yes. And
recoup it?
sorry to say I don't have an answer to that.
It's just
It's a good question. I'll see if I can give you an
I'm curious.
answer. I mean, I would like to be able to answer that too.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions? Okay. Let's move on to project update.
Okay. See fairly quickly. Pleased to report Transformer 4 is online and is serving distribution service again.
Great.
The demolition of the old power line in Conestoga is in progress. It's kind of one of those jobs that's been frozen, so they've been able to get out, probably slow down again, but should see that in the next couple of months finished up. The bids for Transformer 1, which is the step-up transformer for generation, are out. They are due back on the 25th of February. I look to be bringing a recommendation of award to you on March 5th, and then it would go to the City Council on March 16th. project will basically have separate contracts. You've got one contract, which will be for the delivery of the transformer, because the lead time, the delivery of that isn't anticipated until next March, or March 2016. Another piece of the project would be to replace the oil-filled breakers. That would be done by a separate contract. Lead times on that piece of equipment are much less, so that's going to be bid later in the year. The other contract involved will be the elimination of the old transformer and also the old oil-filled breakers. Basically, everything will need to be cleared out in the first quarter in time for delivery of the breaker and the transformer.
Of next year.
Of next year, yes, sir. So it'll be the first quarter of 2016, you'll see one of that. But because of the lead times on the side of the transformer, it's approximately there.
The existing transformer, this is the one that had the bad oil analysis, right?
It has a bladder system, so we've had to replace it at least 3 times that I know of. It is aging, it's about 40 years old. It's oversized for what we need. It's about a 69 megawatt transformer. The replacement is, I believe, like a 27, 36, 45, based on the number of fans you put on the coolant. Estimated cost of it's around. Pleased to report the backyard machine is coming in tomorrow. So the unit that we received a bid award in December on is will be in tomorrow to replace our old one. Staff is canvassing the neighborhoods for the tree trimming program and leaving notices. People are getting calls about some people would like trees removed, and they're working with the residents on that. The alley project between Warren Park is complete except for some connections, which the distribution crew is ordered to be in for March, until March. As I mentioned earlier, we've got SIGA is assisting us with securing 2 proposals for replacement of the SCADA system. One will go with the Wonderware, the Logix. Logix is the background information. Wonderware is the interface. New equipment for it. The other option would be to use Novatech, which is a local firm. And they're going to prepare an analysis form and use that in the presentation. So we could be bringing that to you March 5th. Also on March 5th, we'll be revisiting the electric regulations by revising the ordinance. What we'd like to get out of that is to basically take the sections of the ordinance that are in the electric service standards, get them out of the ordinance, and adopt the electric service standards by reference. Also take the fees out of the ordinance and get them in the city's fee resolution. That's about all I have. Yes, sir.
From a water perspective, we do open bids for our 2015 chemicals for our water treatment plant on February 12th. We have a number of chemicals we purchase every year. And from a sewer perspective, we have been in the process of upgrading the north lift station storage tank. The storage tank is up just north of 167th, just off of Feather Road. That tank is a several million gallon tank that should stay empty 365 days out of the year. But due to I&I in the system, which stands for inflow and infiltration, basically when it rains, for example, this week, our water treatment plant has been putting out about 2 Mtg. We've seen flows upwards of 4 million gallons to our sewer treatment plant this week, and that's all related to the rain that we've had and then getting into our sanitary sewer system. So that tank actually collects, stores that rainwater, that I&I, and then we pump it out of there and into our treatment facility. We had a $180,000 contract in 2014 to replace a lot of the concrete that fell and also to repaint the inside of that tank. The concrete replacement was completed, however, the weather conditions are too cold to paint. And so as soon as we get about 2 weeks of warm weather consistently,
because with this new information and then us taking on water and wastewater, there's gonna be a lot of question as to, well, what was already thought to be on this budget? So, you know, we need to recommend a movement of something, you know, i.e. filter study instead of filter replacement, you know, things like that. I just don't know exactly where we stand. So if I could get some sort of a list or chart or something, I'd really appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments?
I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.